playful, not warning. That's an alert. Something's wrong. Right there, with the kid.
The busy airport terminal buzzed with hundreds of travelers rushing to catch flights, dragging suitcases behind them and saying tearful goodbyes to loved ones. Among the crowd, a tall man in civilian clothes walked with quiet confidence through the main corridor. His name was Tyler, and after 18 months deployed overseas, he was finally coming home. But Tyler was not alone. Walking beside him with perfect discipline was a German shepherd named Rex, wearing a service dog vest that marked him as more than just a pet. The dog's dark eyes scanned the crowd with trained precision, his ears alert to every sound in the chaotic environment. Tyler had one hand resting gently on Rex's back as they made their way toward the arrival area where his family waited. It was supposed to be a simple homecoming, a joyful reunion after months of separation and danger. But in the next few minutes, everything would change. Rex would do something that seemed completely out of character, something that would save a life and leave everyone in tears. Nobody in that airport could have predicted what was about to happen, least of all Tyler himself. Tyler adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and smiled as he thought about seeing his family again. His mother had promised to make his favorite meal, and his younger brother had sent him dozens of messages about all the things they would do together. After the darkness and danger of his last mission, Tyler craved the simple comfort of home, of sleeping in his own bed, of waking up without the constant weight of vigilance pressing down on his shoulders. Rex walked beside him with the same steady rhythm they had developed over 3 years of working together. The dog had been with Tyler through some of the hardest moments of his life, had saved his unit more than once, and had become more than a working animal. Rex was his partner, his friend, and the only living being who truly understood what Tyler had been through. As they approached the security checkpoint exit, Tyler scanned the crowd for familiar faces. He could see his mother already, standing on her toes trying to spot him, her hand shading her eyes from the bright terminal lights. His brother stood beside her, phone in hand, probably texting to ask where Tyler was. The sight of them made Tyler's throat tight with emotion. He had missed them more than he could put into words. But then something happened that made Tyler stop in his tracks. Rex suddenly went rigid beside him, his entire body tensing as if he had detected a threat. The dog's head swung to the left, his nose working the air with rapid sniffs. Tyler's training kicked in immediately. When Rex alerted like this, it meant something was wrong. It meant danger. Tyler's hand went instinctively to his side, though he carried no weapon here in the civilian world. His eyes followed Rex's line of sight, trying to identify what had triggered the dog's response. The terminal was full of people, families reuniting, business travelers hurrying past, children running between their parents' legs. Everything looked normal, everything looked safe, but Rex knew something Tyler did not. The dog began to pull forward, something he never did without cause. Rex had been trained to the highest standards, had worked in combat zones where one mistake could cost lives. He did not false alert. He did not act without reason. So when Rex pulled toward a family standing near the baggage claim area, Tyler followed without hesitation, trusting his partner's instincts completely. The family Rex was moving toward looked completely ordinary. A mother and father stood with their luggage, and between them was a little girl who looked about 7 years old. She had blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wore a pink backpack covered in cartoon characters, and clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her parents were talking to each other, discussing which carousel their bags would appear on, not paying attention to the approaching man and dog. The little girl, whose name was Hannah, was staring off into space with the tired expression of a child who had been traveling too long. She looked perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, perfectly safe. There was no visible reason for Rex to be interested in her, but Rex was not moving toward her randomly. His training was specific, specialized in a way that most people would never guess. Tyler had spent 2 years working with Rex on a unique skill, a skill born from tragedy and grief, a skill that was about to prove itself in the most dramatic way possible. Rex stopped 3 feet from Hannah and sat down in his alert position, his gaze fixed on the little girl with unwavering focus. Then he did something that made everyone nearby turn and stare. Rex began to bark, not the aggressive bark of a guard dog, not the playful bark of a pet wanting attention, but a steady, insistent bark that echoed through the terminal. Once, twice, 3 times. Each bark was deliberate, controlled, purposeful. Tyler's heart began to race. He knew what this meant. He knew exactly what Rex was telling him, but even as the realization hit him, he could barely believe it. Hannah's parents turned sharply at the sound, their faces showing first confusion, then concern, then fear as they saw a large German shepherd barking at their daughter. The mother immediately stepped between the dog and her child, her arms spreading protectively. The father moved forward, his voice rising with anger and alarm. "Control your dog," the father shouted, his face reddening. "Get him away from my daughter." Other travelers were starting to notice the commotion, forming a loose circle around the scene. Some pulled out their phones, ready to record what they assumed would be an incident. A security guard began walking quickly toward them, his hand on his radio. Tyler raised both hands in a calming gesture, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Sir, please listen to me. My dog is a medical alert service dog. He is trained to detect certain conditions. He is alerting on your daughter right now." The words tumbled out fast but clear. Tyler had practiced this speech before, had imagined this exact scenario, but doing it in real life with dozens of people watching was different than any training exercise. The mother's expression shifted from anger to confusion. What are you talking about? My daughter is fine, she's perfectly healthy." But even as she spoke, Tyler could see the uncertainty creeping into her eyes. No mother wants to hear that something might be wrong with her child, but no mother can completely dismiss such a warning either. Rex barked again, his eyes never leaving Hannah. The little girl was now looking at the dog with curiosity rather than fear, her head tilted to one side. "Mommy, why is the doggy barking at me?" she asked, her voice small and confused. Tyler knelt down to Rex's level, checking the dog's body language, confirming what he already knew. "Sir, ma'am, I need you to check your daughter's blood sugar immediately. Does she have diabetes?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. The father shook his head emphatically. "No, she doesn't have diabetes. She's never been diagnosed with anything like that. Your dog is wrong." But the mother had gone very pale. Her hand reached out to touch Hannah's forehead, then moved to her wrist to check her pulse. "Honey," she said slowly, her voice shaking, "when did you last eat?" Hannah shrugged, distracted by the dog. "I don't know, I'm not hungry." The mother's eyes met Tyler's, and in that moment a silent understanding passed between them. Something was wrong. A mother knows when something is wrong with her child, even when she cannot name it. The security guard arrived, his hand still on his radio, his expression stern. "What's going on here? Is this dog bothering you folks?" He directed the question to Hannah's parents, clearly assuming Tyler was the problem. Before anyone could answer, Hannah's mother spoke up, her voice urgent. "My daughter, I think something might be wrong. This man says his dog detected something. She's been acting tired all day, and now that I think about it, she has been thirsty, really thirsty. She drank 3 bottles of water on the plane." The father was still skeptical, still protective, still wanting to believe everything was fine. "She's just tired from traveling. Kids get tired." But doubt had entered his voice now. Tyler stood up slowly, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. "Sir, I'm a Navy SEAL. My dog Rex has been trained specifically to detect hypoglycemic and hyperglycemic events. He can smell the chemical changes in the body when blood sugar drops or spikes dangerously. He is alerting because your daughter's blood sugar is at a dangerous level right now. She needs medical attention immediately." The security guard's demeanor changed instantly at the words Navy SEAL and medical alert. He grabbed his radio. "I need medical to Gate 7 immediately. Possible medical emergency with a minor." Things began to move very fast after that. An airport medical team arrived within 3 minutes carrying an emergency kit. A young paramedic knelt beside Hannah, speaking to her in a gentle voice while pulling out a blood glucose monitor. "Hi, sweetheart, I'm just going to check something real quick, okay? This might pinch a tiny bit." Hannah nodded, still more interested in Rex than in what was happening to her. The paramedic pricked her finger, applied the blood to a test strip, and waited for the monitor to read. When the number appeared, her face went white. "We need to get her to the hospital now. Her blood sugar is over 500. The mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The father grabbed his daughter, scooping her up even though she was getting big for carrying. 500? What does that mean? Is she going to be okay?" His voice cracked with panic, all his earlier anger forgotten in the face of real danger. The paramedic was already preparing an insulin injection with quick practiced movements. "It means your daughter is in diabetic ketoacidosis. Her body is not processing sugar correctly, and she's at risk of going into a diabetic coma. If we had not caught this now, if she had gone home and gone to sleep tonight, she might not have woken up." The words hit everyone like a physical blow. Hannah's mother began to cry, clutching her daughter's hand. But she's never shown any symptoms. We had no idea. How did we not know? The paramedic administered the insulin shot while another medical team member called for an ambulance. Type 1 diabetes can come on suddenly, especially in children. The symptoms can be subtle until they're not. You're incredibly lucky this dog caught it when he did. All eyes turned to Rex, who sat calmly beside Tyler, his job done, waiting for his next command. The dog's tail wagged once, acknowledging the attention, but his focus remained professional. Tyler felt the familiar ache in his chest, the old grief that had driven him to train Rex in this specific skill rising up again. But now mixed with the grief was relief, gratitude, and a sense of purpose fulfilled. Hannah was loaded onto a stretcher when the ambulance arrived, her parents hurrying alongside her. But before they left, the mother turned back to Tyler, tears streaming down her face. She crossed the distance between them in a few quick steps and threw her arms around him, sobbing against his shoulder. "Thank you, oh God, thank you. You saved her life. Your dog saved my baby's life." Tyler hugged her back awkwardly, unused to such raw displays of emotion from strangers. "Rex did all the work, ma'am. I just trusted him." The father approached more slowly, his own eyes wet with tears. He extended his hand to Tyler, and when Tyler took it, the father pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. "I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'm sorry I doubted. I didn't understand. Thank you so much." His voice broke completely on the last words, and he had to turn away to compose himself. Tyler watched them load Hannah into the ambulance, watched it pull away with lights flashing, and felt the weight of what had just happened settle over him like a heavy blanket. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, some people clapping, others wiping their eyes, many still filming on their phones. The security guard approached Tyler, his entire demeanor different now, respectful and awed. "That was incredible, sir. I've never seen anything like that. How did you train your dog to do that?" Tyler looked down at Rex, who gazed back up at him with those intelligent brown eyes. "It's a long story," Tyler said quietly, "and it starts with the worst day of my life." The security guard seemed to sense that Tyler did not want to talk about it here in this public space with phone cameras still pointed in their direction. "Well, whatever the story is, you're a hero. That little girl is alive because of you and your dog." Tyler shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I just did what Rex trained me to do. He's the one who sensed it, who alerted, who wouldn't stop until someone listened. He's the hero." He scratched Rex behind the ears, and the dog leaned into the touch, content now that his work was done. Tyler's own family had witnessed the entire incident from their position near the arrival gate. His mother was crying as she finally reached him, pulling him into the hug he had been waiting for. "Tyler, baby, that was amazing. That poor little girl. Thank God you were here. Thank God for Rex." His younger brother, a college student named Justin, stared at Rex with new respect. "Dude, that was insane. How does he even do that? How can a dog smell diabetes?" Tyler picked up his duffel bag, suddenly exhausted, the adrenaline draining out of his system and leaving him hollow. "Can we talk about it at home? I just want to get out of here." His family understood, flanking him protectively as they made their way out of the terminal. But Tyler could feel the stares following him, could hear the whispers spreading through the crowd. By tomorrow, the video would be viral. By next week, the news stations would be calling. Tyler had never wanted fame or attention. He had trained Rex for one reason and one reason only, and it had nothing to do with being called a hero. The drive home was quiet, his mother asking gentle questions about his deployment, his brother showing him memes on his phone, everyone trying to return to normal after the intensity of the airport incident. But Tyler's mind was elsewhere, traveling back in time to 3 years ago, to the day that had changed everything. His mother's house looked exactly the same as he remembered, the porch light glowing warm and welcoming, the garden his mother obsessed over still perfectly maintained. Inside, the smell of pot roast filled the air, and Tyler felt something in his chest unclench slightly. Home, he was home. Rex explored the house carefully, sniffing corners and checking rooms, making sure everything was safe before allowing himself to relax. Eventually, the dog settled on a rug near the fireplace, his head on his paws, his eyes half closed but still alert. Tyler sat at the dinner table with his family, eating his mother's cooking and trying to focus on the conversation. But his mind kept drifting back to the airport, to Hannah's pale face, to her mother's terrified tears. After dinner, Tyler sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee, Rex at his feet staring up at the stars. He heard the screen door open and close, and then his mother sat down beside him. She did not speak right away, just sat with him in comfortable silence. Finally, she reached over and took his hand. "Do you want to talk about why you trained Rex to detect blood sugar?" Tyler had known this question was coming. His family had supported him through the training process, had helped him find the right instructors, had donated money for the specialized equipment, but he had never fully explained why it mattered so much to him. He had never told them the whole story. "You remember my last deployment before this one?" Tyler asked, his voice rough. "When I was in Afghanistan," his mother nodded. "Of course I remember. You came home different that time, quieter." Tyler closed his eyes, the memories rushing back with painful clarity. "There was a village near our base. We had been working with the local people, building trust, trying to make their lives better. There was this little girl there about 8 years old. Her name was Amara. She used to follow me around whenever I visited, practiced her English, showed me drawings she made. She was so smart, so full of life. She reminded me of Justin when he was that age, always asking questions, always curious about everything." Tyler paused, his throat tight. His mother squeezed his hand, waiting. "One day, Amara started getting sick. She was tired all the time, always thirsty, losing weight. Her parents thought it was just an infection, something that would pass. There was no doctor in the village, and they didn't have money to travel to the city for medical care. I didn't think much of it either. Kids get sick, right? But then one morning we got word that she had collapsed. By the time we got there with our medic, she was already in a coma. Her blood sugar was through the roof. She had undiagnosed type 1 diabetes, and her body had gone into ketoacidosis, just like Hannah." His mother's hand tightened on his, understanding dawning on her face. Tyler continued, the words pouring out now that he had started. "We got her to a hospital, got her the insulin she needed, but it was too late. The damage to her organs was too severe. She died 3 days later. I sat with her family at the hospital, and her father looked at me and said that if they had just known sooner, if someone had just recognized the symptoms, she would have lived. And I realized he was right. If I had paid more attention, if I had recognized the signs of diabetes, I could have saved her. But I didn't know. I didn't see it until it was too late." Tears were running down Tyler's face now, the first time he had cried about this since it happened. Rex lifted his head, sensing his handler's distress, and pushed his nose against Tyler's leg in comfort. "So when I came home, I started researching. I learned that dogs can be trained to detect blood sugar changes, that they can smell ketones and other chemical markers in the breath and sweat. I found trainers who specialized in medical alert dogs, and I asked them to teach Rex. It took 2 years of intensive training, thousands of hours of practice, but I was determined. I couldn't save Amara, but maybe I could save someone else. Maybe I could make sure no other little girl died because nobody recognized the symptoms of diabetes." His mother was crying now too, wrapping her arms around her son. "Oh, Tyler, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You never told us the full story." Tyler leaned into his mother's embrace, allowing himself to be comforted. "I couldn't talk about it. It hurt too much. But training Rex gave me a purpose, gave me a way to turn the pain into something good. And today it worked. Today Rex did exactly what I trained him to do, and Hannah is alive because of it. For the first time since Amara died, I feel like maybe I did something right." They sat together on the porch for a long time, mother and son, while Rex dozed at their feet and the stars wheeled overhead. Tyler felt something in his chest begin to heal, a wound he had been carrying for 3 years starting to close just a little bit. He knew the pain would never fully go away, knew he would always carry Amara's memory with him, but now it felt less like a burden and more like a gift. Her death had led to Rex's training, and Rex's training had saved Hannah's life. There was a pattern there, a meaning, something that felt almost like divine intervention. The next morning, Tyler woke to his phone buzzing constantly with notifications. Overnight, the airport incident had gone viral. Someone had posted the video online with the caption, "Navy SEAL's dog saves little girl's life at airport," and it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. The comments were overwhelming, people from all over the world praising Rex, praising Tyler, sharing their own stories of diabetes diagnoses, talking about the importance of medical alert dogs. Tyler's phone rang, and he saw it was a number he did not recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Is this Tyler?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Michelle, Hannah's mom. The hospital gave me your number. I hope that's okay." Tyler sat up in bed, suddenly fully awake. "Of course it's okay. How is Hannah doing?" Michelle's voice was full of emotion but much calmer than at the airport. "She's doing so much better. They got her blood sugar under control and she's awake and talking." The doctor said if we had waited even a few more hours, if she had gone to sleep with her blood sugar that high, she would have slipped into a coma and probably died. Tyler, your dog literally saved her life. The doctor told us that medical alert dogs are incredibly rare, that the training takes years and costs thousands of dollars. He said we were blessed that you and Rex were at that airport at that exact moment. Tyler felt his eyes filling with tears again. He seemed to be crying a lot lately, this man who had been trained to be stoic and strong. I'm so glad she's okay. Has she been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes? Michelle confirmed what Tyler had suspected. Yes, they ran all the tests. She'll need insulin for the rest of her life. We have so much to learn, so many changes to make, but at least we know now. At least we can manage it. If we hadn't known, if your dog hadn't alerted, she would be dead. Do you understand that? My daughter would be dead and I would have thought she just died in her sleep. I would never have known what killed her. The horror in her voice was raw and real. Tyler understood it completely because he had lived through exactly that scenario with Amara. The not knowing, the preventable death, the guilt that came after. I'm just grateful Rex was there, Tyler said quietly. I'm grateful we could help. Michelle took a shaky breath. I know this might be too much to ask, but Hannah keeps talking about Rex. She wants to see him again, wants to thank him properly. I know you just got home from deployment and you probably want to rest, but if there's any way you could visit her at the hospital, it would mean the world to her, to all of us. Tyler did not hesitate. We'll come today, just tell me what time works best. They arranged to meet at the children's hospital that afternoon, and when Tyler hung up, he felt a sense of purpose settling over him. This was what he had trained for. This was why Rex's skill mattered. Rex seemed to understand they had somewhere important to be, staying close to Tyler as he got ready, his tail wagging with controlled excitement. Tyler's mother insisted on coming along, and Justin decided to join them as well, curious to meet the little girl his brother had saved. The four of them made an unusual group walking through the hospital corridors, but the nurses smiled at Rex's service dog vest and waved them through without question. Hannah's room was decorated with balloons and flowers, gifts from relatives who had heard about her diagnosis. The little girl was sitting up in bed, an IV in her arm, but her color was much better than at the airport. When she saw Rex walk through the door, her face lit up like sunshine. It's him, it's the hero doggy. Rex walked straight to her bedside, his movements gentle and calm around the sick child. Tyler gave the command that allowed Rex to break his working dog demeanor, and the dog rested his head on the edge of Hannah's bed, his tail wagging slowly. Hannah reached out with her small hand and stroked Rex's fur, her eyes wide with wonder. Thank you for saving me, she whispered to the dog. The doctor said you knew I was sick before anybody else did. How did you know? Tyler sat down in the chair beside the bed, his mother and brother standing respectfully near the door. Rex has a very special nose. He can smell things that people can't smell. When your blood sugar gets too high or too low, your body releases certain chemicals, and Rex can detect those chemicals in the air. That's how he knew you needed help. Hannah processed this information with the seriousness of a child trying to understand something important. So he's like a superhero dog, Tyler smiled, the first genuine smile he had felt in days. Yeah, he's exactly like a superhero dog. Hannah's parents entered the room carrying coffee cups, and when they saw Tyler and Rex, they both stopped in their tracks. Michelle set down her coffee and crossed to Tyler, hugging him again like he was a long-lost family member. Hannah's father, whose name was Robert, shook Tyler's hand with both of his own. We can never repay you for what you did, Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. Never. You gave us our daughter back. You gave us the chance to watch her grow up, to see her graduate, to walk her down the aisle someday. Everything she does from this day forward, every accomplishment, every joy, every moment of her life exists because of you and Rex. Tyler felt uncomfortable with such praise, had always been uncomfortable being called a hero. I was just in the right place at the right time. Rex did all the work. But Robert would not accept that deflection. No, you trained him. You spent years teaching him this skill. That took dedication, took sacrifice, took a choice to turn your dog into something more than a pet. Why did you do it? Tyler glanced at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. He looked at Hannah, lying in the hospital bed with tubes and monitors attached to her small body, and he made a decision. He would tell them about Amara. These people deserved to know the full story, deserved to understand the chain of events that had led to their daughter's rescue. So Tyler told them everything. He told them about the village in Afghanistan, about the little girl who had followed him around asking questions, about watching her get sick, about sitting in the hospital while she died, about the crushing guilt that followed. He told them about the 2 years of training Rex, about the determination to save someone else, about the hope that maybe Amara's death could lead to something good. By the time he finished, everyone in the room was crying, including Justin, who had never heard this story either. Michelle reached over and took Tyler's hand, her grip fierce. Then Hannah is alive because of Amara. Her death led to Rex's training, and Rex's training led to our daughter's rescue. Do you see that? Do you see how God worked through that tragedy to create this miracle? Tyler had never been particularly religious, had struggled with faith during his deployments, had questioned how a loving God could allow so much suffering in the world. But sitting in that hospital room, seeing Hannah alive and recovering, seeing the joy on her parents' faces, seeing how his own pain had been transformed into someone else's salvation, Tyler felt something shift inside him. Maybe there was a pattern to things. Maybe even the worst tragedies could lead to unexpected grace. Maybe Amara's death had not been meaningless after all. I never thought about it that way, Tyler admitted. But maybe you're right. Maybe that's exactly what happened. Hannah, who had been listening to the adult conversation with rapt attention, spoke up in her clear child's voice. Is Amara in heaven now? Tyler felt his throat close up, but he managed to nod. Yes, I think she is. Hannah smiled, a beautiful, innocent smile that reminded Tyler so much of Amara it hurt. Then maybe she's the one who told Rex to bark at me. Maybe she sent him to save me because she couldn't be saved. That would be nice, don't you think? The simple faith of a child, the pure logic of her reasoning hit Tyler like a physical force. Maybe Hannah was right. Maybe in some way he did not understand, could never understand, Amara had been part of this rescue. The thought brought Tyler more comfort than anything else had in 3 years. They spent an hour visiting with Hannah and her family, with Rex patiently accepting the little girl's attention and gentle petting. Hannah's parents asked dozens of questions about Rex's training, about how Tyler had taught him to detect blood sugar changes, about whether they could get a medical alert dog for Hannah once she was older and better able to manage her diabetes. Tyler promised to connect them with the trainers he had worked with to help them navigate the process when they were ready. As they were preparing to leave, a nurse came in with paperwork for Hannah's parents to sign. She glanced at Tyler and did a double take. Wait, are you the Navy SEAL from the video? The one whose dog detected this young lady's diabetes? Word had spread through the hospital about Hannah's unusual diagnosis story, and soon several other nurses and even a doctor came by to meet Rex and hear the story firsthand. One nurse told Tyler about her own son who had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 5, about the years of careful management, about the constant vigilance required. Families like Hannah's, they have no idea what's ahead of them, the nurse said quietly. But at least they know, at least they can prepare. So many children die from undiagnosed diabetes because the symptoms are missed. What your dog did, what you taught him to do, that's going to save lives beyond just this one little girl. You know that, right? Tyler had not thought beyond Hannah, had not considered the ripple effects of her rescue, but the nurse was right. The video had gone viral, millions of people had watched it, and now those millions of people knew the symptoms of childhood diabetes. They knew about excessive thirst, fatigue, weight loss. They knew to check blood sugar if those symptoms appeared. How many children would be diagnosed earlier because of that awareness? How many lives would be saved? The thought was overwhelming in its scope. One rescue, captured on video, spreading across the world, creating a wave of awareness that could prevent countless deaths. Tyler looked down at Rex, who gazed back up at him with patient devotion, and felt a surge of gratitude for this remarkable animal who had become his partner, his purpose, his path to healing. They said their goodbyes to Hannah and her family, with promises to stay in touch and plans for Rex to visit again once Hannah was home from the hospital. Michelle hugged Tyler one more time at the hospital room door. "I'm going to pray for you every day for the rest of my life," she said softly. "I'm going to pray that God blesses you the way you've blessed us. I'm going to pray that you find peace and healing from the loss of Amara. And I'm going to make sure Hannah knows this story, knows about the little girl in Afghanistan whose death led to her life. We won't let Amara be forgotten." Tyler could not speak past the lump in his throat, could only nod and squeeze Michelle's hand in return. The drive home was quiet, everyone lost in their own thoughts. Tyler's mother reached over from the driver's seat and patted his knee. I'm so proud of you, honey, not just for what you did at the airport, but for turning your grief into something good. That takes strength, that takes courage. Justin leaned forward from the back seat. Dude, that was heavy. I had no idea you went through all that. No wonder you were so intense about training Rex. Now it all makes sense. Tyler appreciated their support, but he was exhausted, emotionally drained from reliving Amara's death and processing everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. When they got home, he took Rex for a long walk in the neighborhood, needing to move, needing fresh air, needing to think. The autumn evening was cool and quiet, leaves crunching under their feet as they walked familiar streets Tyler had known since childhood. Everything looked the same, but Tyler felt different. Something had shifted inside him, some burden had been lifted, some wound had begun to close. Over the next few days, the attention around the airport rescue intensified. News stations called requesting interviews. Talk shows wanted Tyler and Rex to appear. A publisher reached out about writing a book. Tyler turned down most of the requests, uncomfortable with fame, but he did agree to do a few interviews where he could talk about medical alert dogs and the importance of recognizing diabetes symptoms in children. He made sure every interview mentioned Amara, made sure her story was told, made sure she was remembered. Hannah's parents started a fundraiser to help train more medical alert dogs, and within a week they had raised over $50,000. Other families reached out sharing their own stories of undiagnosed diabetes, of near misses, of children who had not been as lucky as Hannah. Each story reinforced what the nurse had told Tyler. This was bigger than one rescue, this was a movement, this was awareness spreading in ways he could never have imagined. 3 weeks after the airport incident, Tyler received a package in the mail. Inside was a drawing from Hannah showing a stick figure girl standing next to a large dog with the words, "Rex is my hero," written in crayon at the top. There was also a letter from Michelle describing how Hannah was adjusting to her new diagnosis, learning to check her blood sugar and take insulin, being brave through all the frightening changes in her life. Michelle wrote that Hannah talked about Rex constantly, that the story of the hero dog had helped her accept her diagnosis, had made her feel special rather than sick. The letter ended with words that made Tyler's eyes burn with tears. You taught us that tragedy can become triumph, that pain can transform into purpose, that even the darkest moments can lead to light. Thank you for showing us that grace exists in unexpected places, that angels sometimes have 4 legs and fur, and that God works in mysterious ways. You saved our daughter's life, but you also taught us how to live with faith and gratitude. We will never forget what you did. We will never forget Amara. And we will spend the rest of our lives trying to be worthy of the second chance your dog gave Hannah. Tyler pinned Hannah's drawing to his refrigerator where he would see it every day. He put Michelle's letter in a box with Amara's picture and the few belongings he had kept from his time in Afghanistan. These were his treasures now, his reminders of why the hard things mattered, why sacrifice had meaning, why love persisted even through loss. Rex settled into home life easily, adjusting from the intensity of deployment to the quieter rhythm of civilian existence. But Tyler kept up the dog's training, working with Rex every week to maintain his medical alert skills. They volunteered at a local diabetes awareness group, demonstrating Rex's abilities and teaching people about the symptoms of undiagnosed diabetes. They visited schools and community centers, spreading the word about medical alert dogs and the lives they could save. Each demonstration, each presentation felt like honoring Amara's memory, like turning her death into something that mattered. 6 months after the airport rescue, Tyler received an invitation to speak at a medical conference about service dogs and their role in detecting medical conditions. He was nervous about public speaking, had always been more comfortable with action than words, but he agreed to do it. Standing on that stage in front of hundreds of doctors and nurses and medical researchers, Tyler told his story. He talked about Amara, about the guilt and grief that had driven him to train Rex, about the moment in the airport when everything changed. He showed the video of Rex alerting on Hannah, pointed out the specific behaviors that indicated a medical alert, explained the training process that had taught Rex to detect blood sugar changes. When he finished, the audience stood and applauded for a full minute, and several people were openly crying. Afterwards, Tyler was surrounded by medical professionals wanting to know more, wanting to learn how to train their own alert dogs, wanting to implement programs in their hospitals and clinics. One doctor told Tyler that his presentation had inspired her to start a program training dogs to detect seizures in epileptic patients. Another said he was going to begin researching whether dogs could be trained to detect cancer in early stages. The ripples kept spreading, the impact growing far beyond what Tyler had ever imagined. Tyler started a foundation in Amara's name, dedicated to training medical alert dogs and providing them to families who could not afford the high cost of purchasing and training such specialized animals. The foundation used donations from the fundraiser Hannah's parents had started, combined with grants and private donations to cover the costs. Within a year, they had trained and placed 5 medical alert dogs with families across the country. Each placement came with a packet that included Amara's story, Hannah's rescue, and information about the importance of early diagnosis of medical conditions. Tyler traveled to meet each family, to personally deliver their new alert dog, to make sure they understood the training and care the dog would need. These visits became the highlight of his life. These moments when he could see hope replacing fear, when he could watch families receive a tool that might save their child's life, when he could witness the transformation of tragedy into grace. One placement in particular moved Tyler deeply. The family lived in a rural area with limited access to medical care, much like the village where Amara had died. Their 7-year-old son had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after a near-fatal episode of ketoacidosis, and they lived in constant fear of him having a severe low or high blood sugar event in his sleep. The medical alert dog Tyler brought them, a golden retriever named Hope, had been trained specifically to detect blood sugar changes and alert the parents before a crisis developed. When Tyler watched Hope alert the family during a trial run, watched the parents immediately check their son's blood sugar and adjust his insulin, watched the relief and gratitude on their faces, he felt Amara's presence so strongly it was almost physical. This was why she had died. This was the meaning that had emerged from meaningless tragedy. This was the answer to all his questions about faith and purpose and divine intervention. The boy's mother hugged Tyler tightly as he prepared to leave, her tears soaking into his shirt. "You've given us peace," she said. "For the first time since his diagnosis, I'll be able to sleep at night knowing Hope will alert us if something goes wrong. You've given us our lives back." Tyler thought about Amara's father, about the helplessness in his eyes as he watched his daughter die, about the words he had spoken about wishing someone had known sooner. Now, years later and thousands of miles away, Tyler was giving other fathers a different outcome. He was changing the story. He was rewriting the ending, and in doing so, he was healing himself. The nightmares that had plagued Tyler since Afghanistan began to fade. The guilt that had weighed on him like a physical burden began to lift. He still thought about Amara every day, still missed her bright smile and curious questions, still grieved for the life she never got to live. But now the grief was mixed with gratitude, with purpose, with the knowledge that her death had not been in vain. She had died, but her death had led to Rex's training, and Rex's training had saved Hannah, and Hannah's rescue had raised awareness that would save countless others, and that awareness had led to the foundation that was now placing medical alert dogs with families across the country. The chain of events was clear, the pattern undeniable. Amara's life had mattered. Her death had meaning. And Tyler had been the instrument through which that meaning had manifested in the world. On the 1-year anniversary of Hannah's rescue, Tyler received an invitation to attend a celebration at her school. The school was hosting a health fair focused on childhood diabetes awareness, and they wanted Tyler and Rex to be guests of honor. When Tyler arrived, he found the gymnasium decorated with banners and posters, many of them featuring pictures of Rex and Hannah from the airport video. There were booths set up with information about diabetes, about medical alert dogs, about the symptoms parents should watch for in their children. And in the center of it all was Hannah, wearing a t-shirt that said "Rex saved my life" and proudly showing her classmates how she checked her blood sugar. She ran to Tyler when she saw him, throwing her arms around his waist. "You came, I wasn't sure if you could make it." Tyler hugged her back, amazed at how much she had grown in just 1 year, how healthy and happy she looked despite living with a chronic condition. "I wouldn't miss this for anything. I'm so proud of you, Hannah. Look at what you've done here." Hannah beamed at him, her pride evident. I wanted everyone to know about diabetes so they can help their friends if they see the symptoms. And I wanted them to know about Rex, about how dogs can be heroes too. She led Tyler around the health fair, introducing him to her teachers and classmates, telling everyone the story of how Rex had saved her life. Her confidence and enthusiasm were infectious, and Tyler watched with amazement as this little girl turned her diagnosis into a teaching opportunity, turned her near-death experience into a message of hope and awareness. This was Amara's legacy too, he realized. Not just the dogs being trained, not just the lives being saved, but the ripples of awareness spreading from person to person, the knowledge being shared, the vigilance being increased. Hannah's mother found Tyler near the end of the event, pulling him aside for a private conversation. "I wanted you to know that we're expecting another baby," she said, her hand resting on her barely visible pregnancy bump. "A girl, and we've decided to name her Amara after the little girl whose story changed our lives. I hope that's okay with you." Tyler was speechless, overcome with emotion. When he could finally speak, his voice was hoarse. "It's more than okay, it's perfect. Thank you for remembering her, for honoring her that way." Michelle's eyes filled with tears. "How could we not? Everything good in our lives, everything we have now exists because of her. Because her death drove you to train Rex, because you turned your grief into action, because you were at that airport on that specific day. It all traces back to Amara. So we want her name to live on, want her to be remembered, want our daughter to grow up knowing the story of the little girl in Afghanistan who saved her sister's life." They stood together crying in the corner of the gymnasium, while around them children laughed and played and learned about diabetes awareness, while Rex patiently accepted pets and posed for pictures, while Hannah proudly showed off her insulin pump to anyone who wanted to see it. This was healing, Tyler thought. This was redemption. This was grace made visible in the world. Not forgetting the pain, not pretending the tragedy never happened, but transforming it into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that honored the dead by saving the living. That night, Tyler sat on his back porch again with Rex at his feet, staring up at the same stars he had looked at a year ago when he first came home. But everything was different now. He was different. The weight he had been carrying was lighter. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it no longer crushed him. Instead, it motivated him, drove him forward, gave him purpose and direction. He thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. Amara's death leading to Rex's training, leading to Hannah's rescue, leading to national awareness, leading to the foundation, leading to more dogs being trained, leading to more lives being saved. Each link in the chain was forged from pain, but the chain itself was beautiful, strong, purposeful. Tyler pulled out his phone and looked at the picture he kept of Amara, taken during one of their conversations in the village. She was smiling at the camera, her eyes bright with intelligence and curiosity, her whole life ahead of her, or so they had all thought. "I hope I've made you proud," Tyler whispered to the picture. "I hope you know that your life mattered, that you're not forgotten, that you're saving lives even now. I hope wherever you are, you can see what your story has become." A breeze picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees around Tyler's mother's house, and Tyler chose to believe it was Amara answering him, telling him that yes, she knew, yes, she was proud, yes, it had all been worth it. Rex stirred at Tyler's feet, lifting his head to look at his handler, sensing something in the air, in the moment, in the connection between Tyler and the memory he carried. Tyler reached down and scratched Rex behind the ears, this remarkable dog who had become so much more than a pet or even a partner. Rex was a living memorial to Amara, a four-legged angel who carried her legacy forward with every alert, every rescue, every life saved. "Good boy," Tyler murmured. "Such a good boy. You're changing the world, buddy, one alert at a time." Rex's tail thumped against the porch, and the dog settled back down with a contented sigh, his work done for the day, ready to rest and recharge for whatever tomorrow might bring. Tyler thought about all the families out there who did not know their children were sick, who were missing the symptoms of diabetes or other medical conditions, who were living on the edge of tragedy without realizing it. He thought about all the medical alert dogs being trained right now, learning to detect blood sugar changes or seizures or allergen exposure, preparing to save lives they had not even met yet. He thought about the awareness spreading through social media and news stories and word of mouth, the knowledge that could help people recognize symptoms before they became fatal. And he thought about Hannah, healthy and thriving, living the life Amara never got to live, carrying forward into a future that had almost been taken from her. This was the impact of one dog's bark at an airport. This was the power of turning grief into action. This was the miracle of transformation, of finding light in darkness, of discovering that even the worst tragedies can become seeds for unexpected grace. Tyler knew he would continue this work for the rest of his life. He would keep training dogs, keep raising awareness, keep telling Amara's story and Hannah's story and the stories of all the children whose lives hung in the balance, waiting for someone to recognize the symptoms, to sound the alarm, to intervene before it was too late. The foundation would grow, the program would expand, and more families would receive the gift of a medical alert dog trained to protect their children. But beyond the practical work, beyond the training and fundraising and public speaking, Tyler knew his real mission was to keep hope alive. To show people that tragedy does not have to be the end of the story. To demonstrate that pain can be transformed into purpose, that grief can become grace, that death can lead to life. This was the truth Rex had revealed at the airport when he started barking at a little girl. Not just that Hannah was sick, but that love persists beyond death, that sacrifice creates ripples that spread far beyond our understanding, that every life matters and every death can have meaning if we choose to find it. Tyler looked up at the stars one more time, said a silent prayer for Amara, for Hannah, for all the children in the world who needed someone to see them, to save them, to care enough to make a difference. Then he stood up, called Rex inside, and went to bed knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to honor Amara's memory, new chances to save lives, new moments to witness the ongoing miracle of transformation that his partnership with Rex represented. The story of the Navy SEAL's dog who barked at a little girl in the airport would continue to spread, would continue to inspire, would continue to save lives for years to come. And at the heart of that story was a simple truth, that love is stronger than death, that purpose can emerge from pain, and that sometimes the most heroic thing we can do is turn our own suffering into someone else's salvation. Tyler had learned this lesson at the highest cost, had paid for it with the life of a little girl he could not save. But that loss had led to a legacy that would outlive them all. Amara was gone, but her impact lived on in every child diagnosed early because of increased awareness, in every family who received a medical alert dog trained in her memory, in every life saved by the chain of events that began with her death. This was not the ending anyone would have chosen. It was not the story Tyler wanted to tell, but it was a story of redemption nonetheless, a story of hope wrested from despair, a story of light shining in darkness. And as Tyler drifted off to sleep with Rex snoring softly at the foot of his bed, he felt at peace for the first time since that terrible day in Afghanistan when a little girl's preventable death had broken his heart and changed his life forever. If you're reading this story, if you've been moved by Amara's memory and Hannah's rescue, please take a moment to learn the symptoms of childhood diabetes. Excessive thirst, frequent urination, extreme fatigue, unexplained weight loss, and fruity-smelling breath. These symptoms can develop suddenly and they can be fatal if not recognized and treated. Share this information with the parents you know. Be vigilant with the children in your life. And if you're moved to take action, consider supporting organizations that train medical alert dogs or that provide diabetes education and resources to underserved communities. Every child deserves to be seen, to be diagnosed, to be saved. Every family deserves the chance to catch a medical condition before it becomes a tragedy. And every life lost can become a light that guides others away from the same fate. That is Amara's legacy. That is the truth behind Rex's bark at the airport. That is the story that left everyone in tears, not just because of the dramatic rescue, but because of the deeper meaning underneath. That love persists, that purpose endures, and that even in our darkest moments, grace is waiting to transform our pain into someone else's miracle. May we all be instruments of that grace. May we all pay attention to the warning signs. May we all be willing to act when something seems wrong, even if we can't immediately explain why. And may we all remember that every life matters, every death can have meaning, and every act of love creates ripples that spread far beyond what we can see. Thank you for reading Amara's story. Thank you for learning about Hannah's rescue. Thank you for being part of the awareness that might save the next child, the next family, the next life hanging in the balance. If this story moved you, share it. If it taught you something, pass that knowledge on. If it gave you hope, hold on to that hope and let it fuel your own journey of transformation. Because we are all connected in this great web of human experience, and what happens to one of us impacts all of us. The Navy SEAL's dog started barking at a little girl at the airport because he was trained by a man transformed by grief into someone who saves lives. The truth behind it left everyone in tears because it revealed the beautiful, terrible truth that death and life are intertwined, that every ending creates the possibility for a new beginning, and that love, in the end, is always stronger than loss. Amen.